3:05 on the dot. We'll go ahead and get started. Well, good afternoon. I'm Christina Henderson, the Executive Director of the Montana High Tech Business Alliance, and I'm so excited to have this session today for us to learn about, talk about, and understand Web3, blockchain, and NFTs, opportunities behind tech's biggest buzzwords with Lisa Seacat DeLuca. Before I introduce Lisa and kick off the chat with her, I would like to go around the room and just have everybody introduce themselves so you know who else is here, what else everybody is doing. So if you just want to say your name, what organization you're affiliated with, that would be great. Maybe Taylor, if you'd be willing to start, we can work around the room.
Yep, my name is Taylor Tucker. I work with Rocky Mountain Bank. I'm their marketing specialist, and you guys will all be joining me at our Bozeman branch here after this.
I'm Brett Cusker. I'm the director of MSU Tech Link Center.
I always thought you guys will hear all about me soon.
Oh, I'm Devin Gray. I work for a company called Brightline in town. We're a startup doing stuff with blockchain, fintech.
Excellent.
I'm Brett Grank. I'm the dean of the Mormon Johnson College of Engineering. I'm Ira Miller. I'm the director of engineering blockchain for all the Figure Technologies.
What did you say your name was?
Ira.
Ira.
I'm Pat LaPointe. I'm the managing director of Frontier.
Hi, I'm Anita Matthews. I'm a project engineer at WG.
Gary Fox. I'm also an engineer at WG.
Nate Lampert. I work people operations for Figure Technologies, so work with our.
I'm Scott Sanger, senior commercial banker focused on high tech and manufacturing for First Security Bank, along with being the chair for the Montana Manufacturers Association.
Hi, I'm Bob Giesky, also senior commercial banker with First Security Bank. Bozeman and Henderson.
Trevor Hoffmaster, director of Blackstone Launchpad at Montana State University, Center for Entrepreneurship. So great to see all of you.
And I'm Nate Gorn. I'm an intern with Montana High.
And are you Bella?
I am.
Would you introduce yourself?
I'm Valerie Wagner. I am a director of engineering at Figure, and starting next week I will be director of Provenance Blockchain.
At Figure, or is that a separate company?
It's a separate company.
Okay.
Yeah, but spinning out of Figure.
Spinning out of Figure. Interesting. So maybe later in our discussion, you can tell us more about that venture. That's exciting. For our folks online, do you want to introduce yourself? We can't hear you. Jason?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Jason Davidson, Vice President of Engineering here at Figure Technologies, working on the Provenance blockchain.
Okay. And Barney?
Hi, everyone. Barney Benkelman with Axiom IT Solutions out of Missoula. We're a software development company.
Excellent. All right. All right. Well, unpin. Now that they're introduced. All right. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce our expert today, Lisa. Oh, hi, Liz. Do you want to introduce yourself before we get started?
Hi, I'm Liz from Bilateral Exchange. I'm Sean Patton.
Excellent. Welcome to both of you. So Lisa Seacat DeLuca leads engineering and product management for Web3 Identity and login at Unstoppable Domains. Unstoppable Domains is a startup in the Web3 space with a mission to empower user-owned digital identity for every person on the planet. NFT domains are infrastructure that allows people to own their reputation and data between apps. Your data will drive equity, privacy, and Lisa is a TED speaker and the most prolific female inventor in IBM history, with more than 850 patent applications filed and more than 650 granted to date. Her patent ideas range from cloud, mobile, IoT, social, security, AI, blockchain, commerce, and everything in between. Lisa was featured 3 times on the LinkedIn Top Voices in Technology list as #1 or #2, and is an inductee into the Women in Technology International Hall of Fame. A Helena native who returned to Montana during the pandemic, Lisa now lives in Bozeman with her 2 sets of twins. Please join me in welcoming up to the stage, Lisa Seacat DeLuca. Up to you. You're welcome to sit, welcome to stand, whichever makes you most comfortable.
Two sets of twins and you're standing.
She's still on her feet, yes. So I have some questions I'll start out with, but it's also meant to be a discussion. So many of you in the room are doing awesome things with blockchain and Web3 technologies. So we'd love to include you in the discussion. But my hope too is that many of the technologies that we're talking about, the whole concept of Web3 is an emerging and relatively new conversation in tech. And my hope is this can also serve as somewhat of an explainer and an opportunity to kind of learn about what this space is about, what some of the concepts mean, what are we really talking about when we talk about Web3. And so Lisa is, I think, a perfect person to help walk us through some of that while also giving us an insider's view to this industry. If you didn't get a chance yet to grab an agenda, and for those of you online, I will email this to you as well, but we do have a Web3 glossary. So if you would like a primer on some of these terms that we'll be talking about today, Nate over here can hand you a paper. So if you just raise your hand, if you'd like a copy, Nate will bring you a copy of the agenda. So we have some hands if you want to grab that, Nate. Okay, so to get started, Lisa, could you start by telling us about yourself, where you're from, your education, and your career and life path up to now?
Sure. Thank you for the intro. I thought that was really good background of everything that was going on. I was born and raised in Helena, went to Helena High School. I graduated valedictorian and I knew I did not want to go to school in Montana. It was like one of my things, I got to go somewhere else. Like that's where all the tech is, and which is unfortunate. Hopefully it's changed since I've been in high school. So I applied to Carnegie Mellon University, one of the best computer science schools in the country. And I had 0 programming experience. I had done some stuff on the side, kind of taught myself HTML, and like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, this is one of the things where I knew I loved being on a computer, but I didn't necessarily know what it entailed to be a computer scientist. Between starting at Carnegie Mellon, I went to KPMG in Helena and was an intern there and loved the day in the life of being a software engineer. Like, I loved it. It was so exciting to get out of bed every day and just program and see your ideas come to life on the screen. So after graduating from Carnegie Mellon, I went to work for IBM. I was in Austin, Texas for a year, and then I could work from anywhere, which was one of the awesome things about IBM at the time. Now every tech company allows you to, but IBM allowed me to work from everywhere. I was there for 16 years. So I kind of went up the ranks, became a distinguished engineer at IBM. I also became a director of product. So I really love bringing ideas to life. And that's all part of being an inventor as well as the product side. And it's not just the ideas down on paper, but what can impact people and what can actually become a product. So from IBM, again, work from anywhere. The pandemic hit. Poor little kids, work from home. It was impossible. And distance learning and trying to do, kindergarten and first grade kind of stuff on the computer was not happening. My husband's a geneticist, so his lab luckily was closed down. But I'm like, let's go back to Montana. So we hopped in the minivan, kind of drove across the country, and I was working from home in Montana with my parents, and my brother and sister are here. My brother runs Seacat Creative, so local, startup here in Bozeman. My sister is also in tech. She's in sales. She's at, she moves around quite a bit, but she's at Yext right now. So it's like AI search, contextual search. But yeah, and then I was like, I can do anything, right? I can work from home. All these tech companies started opening the doors. But let's try what's out there besides IBM. So I ended up taking a job at Wayfair, which I realized was even slower than IBM. Lots of processes, and it wasn't moving fast enough for me. I love innovating fast and had great ideas, but it just wasn't going to happen in the time period. I'm sure if I stayed long enough, it would have. I introduced a patent program and started making change. And then this Web3 company approached me. And they said, Lisa, we need someone to run innovation. And this is the front line. This is the future. Web3 is that next version of the web, and you need to be part of it. Like, this is your moment. This is our moment in technology. You don't want to miss it. So had to take the lead.
So what was it that led you to make this shift from working for bigger tech companies to a Web3 startup?
It was definitely the speed, like how fast you can bring ideas to life. I've only been there for about 5 months, and I've already filed 8 patents. They're actually products, and we're launching them and hiring like crazy. I'm hiring 2 to 3 engineers a month. Our whole organization's hiring 5 to 8. It's interesting to see like the Coinbases and everything in the news about crypto crashing, and everyone's laying off people, and we're like scooping them up. Like, now is the time in the down market to really start innovating and putting products out.
So maybe I'll like ask you this question a little bit earlier than I had planned. So about this, the crash in crypto that's happened just this week. So literally it was yesterday, we heard the announcement that Coinbase is laying off 18% of its workforce. They warned of a coming crypto winter, and other prominent crypto companies have also laid off employees in recent weeks. And yet over the last couple of years, we've seen this huge crypto boom. So according to PitchBook, venture capitalists invested more than 27 billion in crypto and Web3 projects in 2021, which was more than in the 10 previous years combined. So as someone working in the industry, how do you interpret what we see happening in the news?
Yeah, I think it's affecting everybody. My stocks, I don't know about you guys, I'm like not looking at my 401k, everything's going down. So again, it's how do you react to kind of the market pressures, right? I don't personally have any crypto. I'm like, keep going. I think it's going to crash another 50% and then I'll buy it. But the underlying technology and blockchain, it's not going anywhere. So it's really just about now's the time to invest.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tell us about, I think that for a lot of people, this whole Web3, like what is that? What is Web3? Maybe could you walk us through a short history of the internet? So what was Web 1 and Web 2? And now what do we mean when we say Web 3?
Sure. Web 1, read. Web 2 is write. And Web 3 is own, right? So put it in a single word. Like when the Web 1 first started, it was really just publishing content on the web. So you're going and reading static articles. That was Web 1. Web 2 is that engagement. Like how do you respond to posts and share messages? Social media was introduced. That's Web 2. And Web 3 is this notion that, digital scarcity, you can own assets. It's you as an individual being able to contribute and have a presence. And that's what our mission is trying to be, is like, how do we actually bring this promise of Web 3 to life? Because right now you're seeing a hybrid approach where some things are still very centralized. Web 3 is decentralized. So you don't have the Facebooks, the Google of the world that has a database and could give your data up to anybody. Web 3 is that blockchain approach where every piece of data is decentralized from that same central source.
Tell us more about your work at Unstoppable Domains. Maybe give us an idea of how that business got started, what the company does, and what cool plans and new patents are underway right now, new products.
Sure. So Unstoppable is NFT domains. So NFT is just written to the blockchain. You buy a domain name and then it's minted. We do layer 2, so it's on Polygon. It minimizes the gas fees or the price to mint it to the blockchain. It's really interesting because right now we're seeing that FOMO, like fear of missing out. Everyone has to buy their name, .crypto, .wallet, .x, but there's not a lot of value behind it right now. It's the whole point of it was to be that human readable pass crypto to someone. So rather than that long, crypto wallet address that you could easily make a mistake, you can send money to Lisa.x, right? That makes it a lot easier. And so what I'm doing is, what is that value we can build on top of the NFT and further build out the NFT domain? So it's all about identity and digital identity, and really that promise of Web3. Like, can you bring yourself with you to different experiences? Can you, when you log into an app for the very first time, tell it what you think it needs to know about you so that you can have that personalized experience?
So my question is, are you building the marketplace or are you building the technology?
So we're very similar to like a Namecheap or a GoDaddy right now. So if you go to unstoppabledomains.com, message me, I'll give you guys a free domain to try it out. I met Morgan actually at Consensus and just gave her provenance.blockchain. So tell her to play with it. But yeah, it's right now it's a marketplace. And after you mint your domain, that's when you start building out your digital identity. So you can add profile information, social handles. We have badges based on on-chain activity, like what you're doing, which projects you're a part of. So.
And is there different price structures for all those things?
Yes, everything's different. Usually the shorter domain names are more expensive. I don't know how I got Lisa that accent. I know someone. But like the longer ones are cheaper. You can usually get your first and last name for about $20. And then you own it forever because it's an NFT. So you minted the blockchain and you can take it with you. It's not like a renewal fee like typical domain names where every year you have to up and pay for it again.
Maybe Lisa, can you drill down a little bit and explain what is an NFT and why are people buying them? I think a lot of us have seen these stories about people buying weird digital art for insane amounts of money. And it's like, isn't that just like a JPEG? Like, why would I buy that? Can you maybe give us a little more of the, like, what is that?
Sure. Yeah. So a non-fungible token. So I like to think about it like a baseball trading card, right? Like everyone is unique. Even if you have the same exact player, depending on the mint, like how good of a condition it's in, it's going to be worth more than somebody else's. You can't trade it. It's not like, yes, you can trade it, but it's not unique. It's not the same exact one. Whereas if you have $1 and I have $1, we trade dollars, we both still only have $1. So that's kind of the thinking behind NFTs and their value. There really is a digital scarcity. If you have it, it's yours. It's almost like a bragging right. So you're starting to see NFTs for monkey art. You can see them for domain names, like what we're doing. People are doing it based on proof of attendance protocols, like this event. You could offer an NFT, and then it's proof that you were there, that you were in the room during that event. I love that crossover between in real life events as well as those NFTs.
So given your patent record, which is prolific, you developed a habit looking at new technology, envisioning what the future could hold. When you apply that lens to Web3, what do you see? And why should all of us care about this technology?
It's amazing. It's like I've never been in a moment like this in my career anyway, with just the possibilities for innovation. It's like there's so much from all the different ranges, from DeFi over to NFTs and crypto. And I just seriously could just sit down and have 100 ideas a day. It's amazing. And it's really about how we prioritize them and which ones we want to focus on as a company. But this is just like, I hope you guys, if you aren't exploring it yet, I know we have a lot of blockchain people in the room, you should try to figure out how to bring your company into this new era.
What's DeFi?
DeFi. Yeah,
Okay.
Decentralized finance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was working at Wayfair, I talked to the CTO and I'm like, what do you think about crypto payments? Because the CEO of Airbnb posted a message on Twitter and he said, what are the #1 things you guys want to see? And the #1 was crypto payments. And I talked to our CTO at Wayfair and he's like, I don't know. It's kind of like, what if you rented or what if the Airbnb use case, what if you rented a house and then by the time you're going to move into it, crypto's crashed and like you're not paying the end user as much. And I think that's BS because, you know, it's just like any other, you could give $1 and it'll lose value. It's the same sort of thing, that ROI of how are you going to invest your funds? So you got to change your mindset to really dive into crypto payments.
So what are some Web3 projects that you are particularly excited about or that you think really show the opportunities with this technology? What's different from what's come before? Maybe give us a few examples.
Yeah, I think equity is like my favorite examples, especially when you think of countries where women can't go out and get a bank account, right? They have to have permission from their husbands to go sign up for a bank account. They're now able to trade goods just by signing up online and creating a crypto account and sending money to each other. Like when you start thinking about those use cases, like gives you shivers, like this technology is really changing the world and kind of setting that even playing field. I mean, I think the NFT projects are actually really cool too, especially when you see the real life event kind of aspects to them. Our CEO went to an event in New York and he couldn't get in until he bought a lobster NFT. And so he bought this NFT and proved that he owned it on the blockchain. in order to get into the event. I think that's really cool. I'm going to work on a project here, probably launch a Kickstarter or something called non-fun games. So I'm creating a card game for kids because I like to explain technology to my kids, but it'll be collecting different NFT art in a card game scenario. So you can learn those Web3 kind of terminologies for kids. So there's a lot of really cool projects and hundreds of thousands of dApps that are being created and available on different blockchains for different use cases.
Very exciting. What are some of the biggest opportunities you see right now in Web3 and related technologies? And in particular, how do you see this benefiting society? So you mentioned some specifics of, equity, the global access, but maybe are there more on your list of like reasons why this could be a beneficial movement in the tech sector?
I think it's going to impact every single industry, not just tech. It's like, I know what you guys are doing with provenance and assets, large assets, the banking use case, being able to buy a house. I'm buying a house right here in Bozeman right now, and it's difficult. It's like, why does it take 21 plus days to close? It shouldn't, right? That whole experience of buying a house and dealing with title companies and going through all those record checks, blockchain will solve all that. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of the Web2 businesses start to come forward in the Web3 realm.
Mm-hmm. So maybe let's do another explainer. What is blockchain and how is it related to Bitcoin, and how can like lay people wrap their minds around this space?
Yeah. Blockchain is just underlying technology, right? It's a ledger, it's a linked list. Think of it as you can write something to the blockchain and no one can change it. It's immutable. No one can go in and change it or change how you interpreted it. The cool thing about blockchain, because it's decentralized, is there's a bunch of different people all helping to spread that truth. So it depends on the type of blockchain, whether it's proof of stake or proof of work, but you start to see how different individuals and miners and how gas fees all come into play and how that data gets persisted and the truth spreads very quickly. So Bitcoin, Bitcoin is just, it's just those records, those transactions written to the blockchain.
So Web3 and kind of crypto generally, like some of these things can seem like it's about speculators buying things to make money. And, like tulip bulbs in the 17th century or Beanie Babies, or it seems like hype. But it also could be, is it a tool that people use to build things, or is it both of those things? Like maybe for those of us that are watching from the outside, like how is it being used in those ways?
It's definitely both of those things. I think there's a sense of digital scarcity, which I mentioned before, is huge, right? Owning an NFT, what it really is, like if you think about the Bored Apes, it's just pointing to a URL of a JPEG. It really is a JPEG. But at the same time, there's proof that you own it. So there's that like notion of ownership that is the promise of Web3. So I think that's where the value comes in. It's no different from owning another piece of art. It's just that who thinks it's interesting. So I wouldn't recommend buying an NFT unless you like the art too, because it could very quickly have zero value.
What are some of the bigger trends, so technological, economic, and social, that are really driving Web3?
Yeah, definitely equality, access for all. That's what we're focused on. I think that it's really interesting the difference between Web2 and Web3 when it comes to product management, because typically you are looking for that product market fit. And in Web3, you're almost writing it, like we're all learning together. So it's really interesting to see, kind of do that painted door effect where you throw something out there and just see the feedback that you're getting, and then dive in with more innovation around whatever that product is based on the feedback that you're getting. Whereas in Web2, you do more discovery and product research and really have a better understanding of what the product needs in order before you go live. So I think that part's been really fun as an innovator, because it's like, let's just see what people think. Let's throw some ideas out.
So Web3 also has its detractors. And what are some of the downsides that there exist to Web3 right now? And do you see solutions? on the horizon. And some of the criticisms or concerns that a lot of people have are around environmental impact of the energy use to mine Bitcoin and other currencies, the technological challenges, so it's early stage, some of the user interfaces are poor or slow or buggy, excessive fees, scammers and hackers that are scamming people and then you can't recover your funds because it's anonymous. And there's nobody in charge of it. Also the scaling issues. So many people coming online with this quickly. And then I kind of think I kind of like having the option to delete things, and blockchain is permanent. And what are the implications of that? So maybe thinking about some of these criticisms, do you see potential solutions? Do you think some of these criticisms are fair with where we're at right now? What's your take?
A lot of questions.
Sorry.
So I
Pick your favorite.
Yeah. So for us, layer 1 versus layer 2 is a big difference with environmental friendly and whether something is more expensive or cheaper. And what that means is a lot of the blockchains grow, and since you can't ever delete it, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's very expensive, both energy consumption wise, as well as actually writing to the blockchain when you're talking to a layer 1. So what we're looking at is porting to different layer 2s, and the layer 2s are cheaper because they're smaller. So to actually get that 51% of the decentralized node networks knowing what the truth is much cheaper than when you have that larger network. So that's one way a lot of companies are starting to combat that environmental issue and just the cost of blockchain. As far as scam and fraud, that's huge. I think there's a huge opportunity in fact to innovate around that space. And how do you make it easier? NFT domains, for example, you have to mint that NFT in order for it to be yours forever. And minting it, understand it. It sounds so permanent. It's only 50% of our purchased domains are even, which is interesting. And a lot of, they don't understand that you don't have to connect money to the wallet in order to mint it, because that wallet's really just your unique identifier, saying that you own whatever you're minting to that wallet address. So there's some education. There's some companies like Magic Link does a really good job of automatically creating a wallet and kind of hiding it from end users, so that when you interact with a decentralized application, that wallet's just created and specialized for that app. So that's one of the challenges we have, is how do we educate people that creating wallets not that hard. It's actually pretty easy, but just simplifying that whole process will help. But I do think that crypto does have a bad rep in the news, and you're hearing a lot about the scams and how people get rubbed. And when you support an NFT project and then the creators and mentors of that collection don't follow through on their roadmap and what they promise. So there's concerns like that, but there's solutions. There's cold wallets, which is basically like a USB thing that you can save all your crypto offline instead of having it all connected. You can create multiple wallets. There's things you can do, but there's lots of room for innovation in that space.
There's also conversation lately about whether this space needs to be regulated. Should it be a security the SEC would regulate, or have other laws? Do you have thoughts on that? Do you think that would be helpful in securing the space, or would that undermine some of the opportunities or the kind of the values of Web3?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of our users think they're anonymous, or there's something about Web3 where you could just be like a PFP, you're just a picture, you're not a real person, but everyone's traceable. It's all on the blockchain. So it's I don't know if you guys heard in the news, the OpenSea product manager who knew which NFT projects were going to be featured on their main site. So he was buying them up early and then turning them over and selling them. And he created all these wallets to hide the money he was making and move it around. But he's going to court over it. So I think that it'll be easy to regulate. Whether I think it's good or bad, I'm just seeing how it all plays out. But I think it's naive to think that you can't be traced.
43% of today's web traffic is controlled by the tech giants Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. what are the problems that you see with an internet that is so centralized? And what are the opportunities of a more decentralized internet?
Yeah, this is my space, right? Digital identity. I don't think people realize what they're paying for, like Facebook. Like you think you're getting a service for free, but you're not. Like you're giving them your data, and in exchange, you have to listen to all these ads, and you're basically being monetized, right? I think there's a stat that every Facebook user was worth $3.50 a month or something to Facebook, and just the amount of money they're making on you and your data. And it's going to be interesting to see how that changes with Web3. I think we're going to start to see more opportunities for marketing and segmentation, and users being rewarded for their own data, right? Like, I'll give you access to my home location, Wayfair, and the fact I just bought a new house, if you give me that 20% off discount, or you give me $10 to shop. So instead of that money going to the centralized Facebooks and Googles of the world, they'll go back to the individual, which I think will be interesting.
Mhm. We've also seen interest in the possibilities of Web3 for the creator economy. Writers Legion and Katie Parrott have called the Web3 Renaissance a golden age for content, and argue that Web3 is tilting the scales of power and ownership back toward creators and users. And do you agree with this assessment? And how do you see that happening?
Yes, I love that. I think that's my favorite part about Web3 is just that there's no more middleman. The creators get rewarded for all the things they're creating. Like you're going to start to see it more in the entertainment industry, like creating movies, creating articles, creating all sorts of content. I think Snoop Dogg has his own thing. There's a lot of musicians that are starting to make money by selling their music as NFTs. So I absolutely think so. At the same time, I think that like the Bored Ape, I'm pretty sure they commissioned out that artwork. So every time they resell it, yes, there's a fee that goes, a licensing fee that goes back to the creators behind Bored Ape, but I don't think that artist is getting it. So it's kind of an interesting balance between, are the creators really being rewarded? They need to get educated on how to go forward with their own art versus them just being commissioned out.
Mm-hmm. What role do you see artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the Internet of Things playing in Web3?
Yeah, I mean, this was my background before I came to Web3, and all about machine learning. How do you kind of interpret and guess what users are going to do? And really, the CEO of IBM called it augmented intelligence. So basically, those individuals that are already doing their job, how do you make their job easier? How do you bring that data forward faster? And it'll be interesting with Web3. I do think as users kind of tell the DApps more about themselves, then a lot of that machine learning will be done for the DApps, especially small companies that might not be able to afford a big AI in-house kind of solution. That said, I think we can help build out those digital profiles and learn about individuals from AI and propose to them, hey, you think you're a dog owner because you put this dog bed in your car, and therefore let's bring that to your other experiences for you. So we're going to see some really cool overlap.
Mm-hmm. This is off the page, but can you define a DApp for us?
Yes, decentralized applications. So a lot of the new web developers, I'm hiring engineers, and I'm looking for the same skills from Web 2 to Web 3, right? I'm looking for front-end engineers or full stack engineers. A decentralized application, they're basically just their back end is decentralized, but they're still using the same technologies to write the front end. They're still using React and JavaScript and those standards. So decentralized just is how the data in the background is being stored.
Okay, thank you. Why should companies in Montana explore these technologies now, or would it be better to wait and let it mature?
Never wait. You gotta get on in front of it. Yeah, I think if you don't jump on it, you'll be left behind, right? I think this is absolutely the future, and whether it's one blockchain or another blockchain, we'll figure out who wins in the end. But I think in general, just being familiar with the space, starting to brainstorm and think about how your business could adapt or change, or start thinking about these strategies, even if it's little, like getting your NFT domain, something like that will make you stand out and move forward.
Right now, it's a lot of the users in this Web3 space who are engaging in blockchain it tends to lean toward governments or larger corporations that are looking at ways to make their day-to-day operations less expensive, more efficient. And for small and medium-sized businesses, I think the impression is that adopting blockchain is cost prohibitive beyond their capabilities. Do you see this changing? Do you think that that's a myth in some ways, or that there are ways to make use of this if you're small or medium?
Yeah, I do think it's a myth. There are some blockchains that are cheaper, and there's tons of opportunities to participate, even if you're not implementing it yourself, like using certain services or DApps that are out there. Yeah, I don't think that should stop a company from exploring.
Okay, and my last question is, to many people, Web3 can seem like the playground of the extremely wealthy, that these are investors, tech speculators. Do you see that these technologies are going to more reach the mainstream? Kids, families, like regular people on the street?
Yeah. There's some kids like we partner with different wallets. There's a kids-based wallet, a family wallet, where kids can start playing with crypto, and the parent gets to be in charge of how the funds are moved around. So absolutely, like I said before, I think you have to make it easier to onboard, right? That one click get, just like any other Web2 experience, how do you get started without it feeling so scary? Like, what is this on the blockchain forever? I also think it's going to be a hybrid approach. Not everything's going to be written to the blockchain. Some people talk about healthcare data. No, I don't think that my personal healthcare data that's private is going to be on the blockchain. It'll be interesting to see how some legal regulations, like we were talking about GDPR, and what does that mean if we're building out a profile and someone wants to save their email address or their phone number in the blockchain? You can't delete it. It's not like if they come and tell you to delete it, it's there forever. So thinking through those challenges from a legal perspective is going to be interesting as well. A big area we're looking into is KYC, which stands for Know Your Customer, which a lot of big banks need in AML. Basically, it's a humanity check. So you can use your government issued ID to check and verify that you are who you say you are, to participate in a lot of the big DeFi companies and exchanges like Coinbase. You have to go through that process, so that idea of feeling anonymous is that kind of goes away. So it's interesting to see how people are starting to use humanity check to figure out how they're going to change the experience, and kind of one-to-one voting when it comes to a DAO, like a voting situation. I would love it if my HOA had a DAO, so it's like super easy to be able to vote on different issues. But yeah, it's just a fun space.
Great. All right, now I'll open it to the room. What comments or questions do you have?
At the very end, you talked about privacy, healthcare data. Now, you've been talking about how secure blockchain is, and you put all this data out there. Some other healthcare is different. How is healthcare different than your financial information or your criminal record or whatever information might be stored online?
Blockchain is secure, but it's still public data. Like, it's still out there public. Yes, you could encrypt it, put it on the blockchain, but why would you? Like, what? There's got to be a trade-off for why you would want something on the blockchain.
Hacking, isn't it?
What's that?
I also mentioned I have a healthcare company that I just started, and we're actually just phrase it this way: it's like an EKG for the penis. So we're documenting the vital signs of every man's favorite organ, and we do the same thing for women as well too. And there's obvious concerns about cybersecurity. Everything can be hacked. And we're telling people run the Amazon cloud and it's safe, blah blah. But you and I both know it's not really that safe.
Yeah.
And so you're saying the blockchain is no more, would not be a place that we would want to go.
Not because of security, but more about privacy, right? As your own individual self, right? I think some aspects of healthcare, like your identifier, your unique ID, your claim history, some of the transaction data could be on the blockchain, but I don't think I'd want someone to know when I went to the doctor, what I went to the doctor for, to necessarily be on a big public blockchain.
So we invest in a lot of healthcare companies, and that is a huge issue in medicine. All of these rare disease, nonprofit cancer research institutes, hospital systems, university hospital systems are sitting on the keys to solving these, but you can't do it if you can't compare and put an algorithm to the data. But the data has to remain secure, but we're so close to being able to do that.
Yeah, I've worked closely with United Healthcare in the past about what they're doing and their AI internally, where they can do all these predictions. I went to their lab where they were predicting that this one apartment building was exposed to asbestos because of all the doctors' things that were happening. So there's a lot you can do there with the data if you have access to it. Right thing.
And we have a company that predicts kidney disease, because it's basically asymptomatic until you're sick. And the government has capped lifetime spend on kidney disease at a certain amount. So it's really, there's a big financial reward for doing that, but it's really a problem. The data is.
I would add to that, just to answer your question as well. One thing to remember is blockchain data is all public, all of it. So there's no use case for putting anything that needs to be private on a blockchain, but that doesn't mean you still can't make use of it. One thing we do and is commonly done is if you're in a case where you need to prove some data, you can calculate the fingerprint of that data and put it on a blockchain. There's nothing in that fingerprint, it's a random number, numbers and letters. So there's nothing identifying about it. But if you're in a case where you need to prove, for example, a figure we issue HELOCs, and so you have the promissory note, and so we'll take the fingerprint that checks on that note and put it on the blockchain. Later, we can come back and prove that the document I have is the document registered. So it's more about how you want to use the blockchain than just thinking it is data sharing.
But
Yeah.
the legal system on it.
Yeah, but verifiable credentials, reputation, those are all things we think are really cool, especially, NFT that you graduated from MSU. Like there's a lot of ways you could then use that within your community, maybe get free parking for students, and it's all based on that on-chain activity. So many things you could do.
Good question. I would love to hear from maybe other folks who are doing work in Web3 and blockchain, like maybe Figure and now Provenance. Like maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what you all are doing and applying this technology.
Sure, I'd be glad to. And Ira, who's our really the core of the blockchain team here is here as well, but I'll just give an overview. Figure is a startup started 4 years ago to build the Provenance blockchain and to build businesses on top of it. So Figure has 3 or 4 verticals. We've got a lending business, we've got cap table management, equity, we have an alternative trading system license, and we have a payment rail, and we have digital fund services that we all built to prove out the use of blockchain. And for us, we're really in the space of making processes that are regulatory friendly. We're not trying to make a coin and get around the SEC and claim it's not a security when it is. We're working in the regulated space. We're working to bring regulations to the space. We're about making processes more efficient. And so at the heart of what we can do on the blockchain is what we call bilateral exchange. And that is where in a single transaction on the blockchain, you can have an exchange of an asset for money, for some kind of currency. And by doing that in a single transaction, you eliminate any counterparty risk or delayed settlement time. And so when we do securities trading on our ATS, it is a T0 instant settlement. It's not a T2 settlement. The actual security is on the blockchain, the money is on the blockchain. One of the other things that we're doing is called USDF. You've maybe heard of something called stablecoin. And famously, a couple of weeks ago, one of the major stablecoins depegged and lost its value. We take a different approach. Again, we think that banks already have the regulatory framework for managing money, and they already are the right people to be doing this. So we're having the banks make those stablecoins and call it a tokenized deposit, which is just really the bank account is ledgered on the chain and the money's really there. It's not some kind of meta currency. So we're looking into bringing traditional finance onto blockchain. All right,
Very well. You guys have deep questions, well, obviously. The answers.
John on Zoom, do you have a question?
Hi, Christina. Are you able to hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great. Yeah, I can share finally, because I've been under strict NDA for a year. But I've been working for the past year for a major game company doing research on integrating NFTs into their existing technology. And so to kind of go on Lisa's game card or trading card analogy, if you own, say, a basketball team of cards and you had a game where, you know, these teams are competing against each other, I built a platform to take those assets and put them onto a public market, for example, OpenSea. So then they can be traded as NFTs, and that asset's valuable in itself. As for example, if you played a game for 5 years and you got a player really good, you could then, and when you decide it's time to have kids and get rid of your game, you could sell that asset to somebody and it would take along its equity. But it really, what this project really did is I spent years in enterprise consulting, and it proved out the ability to tie what you would say is public data, what was on the public ledger, together with what's behind the scenes, and create a kind of a transparent and transferable layer of permissions. And what Lisa's working on is tremendous, because one of our troubles was, how do we educate our users and make this, you know, like, so that it's super simple, and things like domain names are going to go a long ways. But it's like this was my experience, was able to sort of prove out a lot of like the questions you all have, like, you know, Liz, with, you know, how does this work with healthcare data and things like that. These things are going to happen. It's just a matter of understanding the technology. So super presentation. Thanks, Lisa.
So I'm very interested in what kind of security you're working on.
Yeah, so we have, I think our biggest security issue at this point is we're giving away free domains because we want our domains to be accessible for everyone. I run our login and identity product, so we have over 100 integration partners, and you can add login, similar to like a single sign-on for Google, where you sign in with your Google account. So when you sign in, you also authorize access to certain parts of your data. But we don't want to require everyone to buy a domain name. Not everyone has $20 to spend, or $5, whatever the cheapest one happens to be. So we're offering away for free. So as part of that login process, you can claim a free domain. They're lower value, be like your name and 2 digits at the end. So it's not as nice as just your name. But we're seeing a lot of people trying to abuse that from a standpoint of claiming a bunch of free domains. So we're doing some security in order to, you know, make sure it's a one-to-one with your wallet. We're doing some IP address manipulation. Some of our identity providers do like phone number SIM swaps. So SIM swaps are a big issue that you'll hear about in crypto, where people take the SIM card and put it in another account, or say they lost their phone and need the SIM card. So this provider can do a check to see how long it's been since you had a new SIM card. And we can do those kind of security checks as well. I mean, once you buy your domain name, it's yours forever. So it's not, one thing we're trying to tackle is, what does that mean if someone forgets their private keys, right? Like, what if they lose their identity? But I think that those are easy to solve, and there's a lot of people out in the market that are working on it.
I would be curious to hear more about what Unstoppable Domains is doing with digital identity. What kinds of identity?
Yeah, we're going to be everything right now. Send me a note. I'll send you a domain. You can try it out. Once you mint it, create a profile similar to what you do on LinkedIn, right? You fill out your name, where you're from. You can bring in your social handles. You can validate or verify those social handles, which just goes and make sure you can log into your Twitter account. I want it to be a platform that you can build on top of, because that's the real power of Web3. It's like everyone's decentralized. We're all playing nice together. We're not the one place for digital identity, but instead other people can bring their identity as well into our application. So we're more of an aggregator. So we're starting to think through what's the future of that. I mentioned badges. So you can, based on your on-chain activity, you get a little badge. So if you have a domain name, you get like an Unstoppable badge. And if you have 100 of them, you get a different badge. If you're a Bored Ape, there's a little monkey picture. There's those kind of things. And so we want to make it so that decentralized apps can say, I want a badge for my app. So people who log in can have a badge for me. So we're starting to build that developer ecosystem. How can people plug in and kind of build on what we're doing?
And how much of that is on the blockchain, like the NFTs you own, and how much of it is data stored in it?
It's definitely hybrid right now. I'd say most of it is centralized on our servers, but a lot of the on-chains, the badges, it's like your crypto wallet addresses. We have a way to add multiple addresses. Login is kind of the EVM blockchains is what we support, but we're looking into how do we do the other ones on top of it and kind of validate that. So I think it's always going to be a hybrid approach. I think some data, like we talked about, is private. It's not something you ever want on chain.
Other cool Dane projects people know about? Or questions people have?
Might have a question.
Lisa,
It's really-
Oh, hold on one second. Bob's asking in the room, and then we'll turn it back to you, John, okay?
Sure.
Your opinion, what the future might look like in banking, as a couple of bankers are sitting here. And you mentioned the experience you had with buying a home, and then I hear a company here that has the ability to, we'll do it with HELOCs on blockchain. So what do you think the future of banking is?
You're disrupted.
That's what I'm hearing.
I think that it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's blockchain ATMs now. You can go up to an ATM and get Bitcoin and transfer Bitcoin. And I think that there'll always be a need for some sort of transfer of funds. I don't even have cash anymore. I'm like, sometimes it's horrible, but I'll see a homeless person like, dude, accept Venmo. Like, I don't have any money. So it's like that technology breakthrough of all these people and how do you transfer money? I think there's room for a lot of players and how that's happening, and it helps to kind of normalize the competition. But
So disruption ahead. Be prepared, Bob. John, what were you going to say?
Yeah, it's a comment, but question for Lisa. Like, I think with this Web3, we're at a point with when we were in Web 1, like, and domain names started coming out and companies started getting websites and like, we got to get on board this. What is this thing? And then there was this point when like we were trying to analyze data and target advertising. And the trick to that was getting like a username and tracking them across sessions. And that was tricky to get adoption. So Lisa, like I thought a lot about this, and to me, it's like, man, it almost has to be like a Twitter that goes out and makes a Web3 wallet, and then because of their masses, they get adoption. What is your thoughts? Like, how do you get mass adoption of the Web3 wallet? Does that make sense?
yeah, I think that the biggest thing is just making it easy to get a wallet and not. Right now, people are scared because they're like, I'm going to lose this private key, right? How many of you have a wallet? Okay, so all the blockchain people, but everybody else, like, it's like, what, 26 different random words? So it's not even like your own password. It's something that's given to you, and it'd be really easy to lose it. And people are inscribing it onto a card they're then saving under their bed. Like, there's all these horror stories, people losing all their assets just from that. So that whole experience has to change. And I get it while it was put in place, but I think there are companies that are starting to innovate into how do you make that whole private key situation not as scary for regular people.
Yeah, and then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is if you make it too easy and you just click, yeah, I give permission, you just gave permission to somebody to have free access to your wallet. And so users have to know what they do before they click that. It's a lot of education that has to be done.
Yeah, we have like people will click, there's this app called Discord, which a lot of NFT communities have a Discord channel. And that's where you're hearing a lot of people clicking on a link that comes from the community manager, and then all their crypto's drained. I have a friend, he does NFT 365, a podcast. You guys should listen to that one. But he had a lot of his NFTs stolen. I think it was $100,000, something like that. And the community was so nice. People donated. The people that ended up buying the NFTs transferred it back to him. He paid for it, but he got all of his NFTs back. But he mints an NFT every single day and talks about his experience. So it's pretty interesting. But like we introduced a Discord bot that uses humanity checks. So you log in with your domain name, Lisa.x, And then when you log in, then you can check whether someone has gone through humanity check. The reason that's important is then you know it's an individual and it's a one-to-one thing. So someone can't spin up a bunch of different accounts, and it's easy to track those malicious people.
Mhm. Were you gonna say something?
So if I were a banker, I would be watching what, how long it's taken the automotive industry to kind of realize that electric cars are here now. It's taken 20 years. It shouldn't take more than 5 years in banking.
Should be
Everything
faster.
takes more than 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got like a very highly regulated industry, and that's what I was thinking, where the best way, back to John's question, the best way, almost the easiest path to adoption, is through a highly regulated industry like banking. And so you almost, and there are consumer protection laws written by Congress to protect the consumer from themselves. Reasons why you
That's why
can't.
need to use provenance
Yeah.
blockchain.
I know.
That's literally what
So, I mean,
we're making.
to your point, like a bank goes down, FDIC covers it, crypto goes down, you've lost your crypto. So I mean, I also think adoption, it has to be built on trust, but also on need. Like, I don't trade art, so I don't need it. I don't trade NFTs, so I don't really need it. And maybe it's just because we're not quite there yet. And even with electric car example, yeah, they went there because did they have to, or did the government kind of regulate them to it? And is it the best one? Is hydrogen better? Who knows, right? So,
I mean, I'm buying a house and all the fees that add up, it's over $10,000. It's just going to middleman. I think by next summer, we're gonna see a lot of just buying a house online. And then in the next 5 years, probably all gonna be online.
but
through
is that a
blockchain.
Web3 thing, or is that an efficiency in banking, getting rid of some middleman thing?
I mean, Web3 is really just blockchain to help with the technology to make it transparent.
Yeah.
So it's still,
Yeah, if you don't need financing, or you don't need appraisal, you can buy a house in a day.
but appraisal, come on. It comes in at exactly asking every single time.
Oh, I know, it's a joke, but yes, I know.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a lot around that. And a good example is like Venmo. I didn't use Venmo until babysitters stopped taking checks. Like, oh, okay, I guess, so when it becomes like, oh, no, you don't need an NFT until that's all they take.
No one wanted to touch your cash in the pandemic.
Yeah.
That was enforcement.
Yeah.
But for example, USDF is a consortium of banks, and the deposits back in the state of are FDIC insured. Actually, they're.
As it's backing stablecoin.
Yeah.
So
it's a one-to-one.
again, define stablecoin is,
So there are many flavors of stablecoin. They're not at all. In fact, we specifically in public I'm not supposed to say the word stablecoin. I'm supposed to say tokenized deposit because it is the bank account just ledgered on the blockchain. Still FDIC insured, still KYC.
I mean, we were talking before everyone showed up. Fidelity now lets you trade crypto as part of your 401k assets. So it's coming.
Yeah, I think one thing that maybe you want to think about in terms of payments and why you want to do this is if let's say you're selling something on Craigslist and you want to exchange it, you're in person with that other individual, and you want to know that they're like, sold a motorcycle a while back. The guy hands me a check. The best I could do was call the bank. They said that they can't give you much information, but they said that it was fine. If it had been crypto, when I turned over the paperwork and I turned over the keys, I would have 100% guarantee that that money was mine. Couldn't be anybody else's. Couldn't take it back. Couldn't be a scam. Couldn't be, like a canceled check or something like that. It's home. That's that bilateral settlement. I think beyond the thing that gets missed off it right now is that banks are the on and off ramp. All of the fiat that goes into the crypto ecosystem. So they're a fundamental part of that. That's where the money comes in. That's where the money comes out. People are associated with that. When you talk about payments on blockchains not being reversible, it's a function of how the blockchain logic was implemented. You can totally implement blockchain logic that allows payments to be rolled back. It's a function of the innovation that's happening.
But don't have that today for small payment dollars. I have it in Venmo. If I sell something to somebody, as soon as the Venmo hits my account, here's the paperwork. For small dollar transactions, under $10. For large dollar transactions, I wire transfers, and I have to wait an hour. Well, I have wire.
I mean, there's still a middleman, like PayPal. I've purchased things on
Okay,
eBay
no, I'm
and I
not
never
gonna
got
schedule
the
my
thing.
house closing for a Sunday.
Yeah.
I think wires aside, one of the biggest challenges banking is the ACH process.
Right, it's still really slow.
It's slow and it's not guaranteed.
Right, right. Totally, AC, that's why I didn't mention ACH.
Venmo bank smooths that over and kind of hides it behind
Right,
curve.
so I mean, hasn't Plaid solved a lot of this problem?
It's still centralized. It's, yeah.
Well, I don't care how it moves, the fact is it shows up in my account.
But you do care because you pay the fees. You're paying the fees to use Venmo. Those
Right.
fees are covering the middle.
Right,
There's a flat 3% tax. The credit cards extracted from the economy. Everybody pays. You pay tax, you pay in cash, you still pay them because the prices in the shop are accounting for the credit card processing.
right.
It's an industry that has fees that have been consistent since for years, and decades.
Right.
Everything else fees goes down, consistency.
I'm totally with you. When will that change with blockchain? I can rarely, I can rarely do that.
So that,
At
I mean,
some point,
yeah.
it's a question of scale equals convenience, right?
But it
So
never, it
where's
never,
that tipping point, really, where's those killer use cases that cause that tipping point to start to kick in?
I'm convinced. I don't know. It's like, you gotta go read, watch some YouTube videos and see it. It's here, it's now. People are already sending each other crypto. I had a friend who her bank wouldn't let her deposit her money into her Coinbase account. So I sent her some ETH and then she Venmoed me over some money to cover that. So it's like, it's so much easier to send crypto to someone than anything else.
I'm not arguing that point at all, sorry.
I thought you were talking about ease of use.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, aloud, like every time I listen to dozens and dozens of blockchain crypto based pitches a month. Every time I scratch beneath the surface, I keep looking for, okay, where's the killer use case? And I keep hearing it's coming.
It's coming, but it's here. And buildings since 2018.
And I'm listening to the product story and it's fascinating because the strategy is differentiated.
We're not
It's really
consumers,
interesting.
right? We're consumers. Financial.
Right, I totally get that.
One thing our CEO says is Morgan McKinney is, and she was an executive at Citi for 15 years. We need digital money. She has an article on this, and there's not a one size fit all. There's not one kind of money that solves everything, right? So when Bitcoin was invented, I was just reading through early Bitcoin articles the other day, and it was all about, oh, we're going to use Bitcoin for payments, and famously somebody paid 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza, and we call it Bitcoin Pizza Day now on whatever date that was. But it turned out Bitcoin is too volatile and too valuable to
Right.
be a real-time payment.
Right. And so this concept of stable
So
coin
there's all these new types and things
Right.
being
was a great
invented.
innovation.
And provenance, I mean, I'm not trying to defend provenance, I'm just saying, explaining what we do, but we're focused on making those processes that do make sense and making those traditional financial activities more efficient
Right.
and more secure.
So non-algorithmically derived stable coin concept. You're not allowed to use the word stable.
Tokenized deposits, okay. Maybe I should add that to the glossary.
So can I ask one other question, Lisa?
Yeah.
So some might argue that we're about to move out of the era of passwords. That
Yes.
we're moving into localized biometric identification. How does that tie to blockchain?
100% agree. I mean, my login features are 0 passwords. So you enter your domain name, you sign your crypto with a crypto wallet, and you're in. There's no passwords. Passwords are dumb. Except for your private key.
Semantics.
Yeah. You don't have to
So
enter
you
it
got a
ever.
7-word semantic
But
key.
you still need to take a deposit box.
Yeah.
Yeah, just say, but that's easier than a password.
Yes, it's a one-time, yeah.
To riff on that a little bit, if once you.
One second, John. One
Sorry.
second, John. Sorry. No, Kurt, you go and then we'll be back to John.
It's kind of a 2 or 3 part question, but you mentioned earlier about it, I think an NFT ATM.
Mhm.
So you mentioned.
No,
So,
yeah, I think you can get NFTs, but definitely Bitcoin.
okay, Bitcoin ATM. when's the last time you used the Bitcoin ATM? What did you use it for? And how does it?
I've never used one because we live in Montana and I have not seen it.
You know if someone used one, what did they use it for?
Yeah, I don't know of someone personally who's used it, but I can ask around. I've seen it in the news.
What did they use it for?
Transferring money in, transferring money out. It's same as any other ATM, except you're not getting the physical cash.
Would you need an ATM? I mean, it's all digital, correct?
If you want to like deposit, like say you have $10 deposit to your
I
bank.
see.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Mhm. John, go ahead. What did you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things I think about this as like people are learning about it is, you know, once in the case of Lisa saying, yeah, it's one click and there's no password. To expand on that, then like with the Ethereum blockchain, the smart contracts are similar to like a stored procedure in a database where there's a bit of code out there. And that bit of code only runs if it's you. And it's absolutely you if you've clicked that button. So we can, as developers, know that this code is being, you know, it changes the whole authentication method and the way, frankly, of managing secure data at the architecture level. But to understand kind of the concept behind that, once you're authenticated, you know, like you're in and you have access, and if you don't, you don't. There's no two ways. It's fun stuff.
Most smart contracts are open source, so you can go read about what's going on. I mean, it's open source because it's on the blockchain, but you can go see what other people are doing. And if I were going to create an NFT collection, which I'm going to do, I can go see what other NFT collections are doing with their smart contracts, so I can mimic some of that.
That would be the old stodgy banker here, but how long is it going to be before the governments come in and take over this? Because how do we thwart money laundering, terrorism, all this if it's a decentralized financial system?
They're already talking about bills. It's already in discussions. You can read what's being discussed, but you know, that's the AML, the KYC, the know your customer stuff I was talking about, where you do have to go through a government issued ID and can be traced.
Shock me, think they're not already there.
Well, I'm sure they are.
Yeah, TurboTax this year, filing my taxes, it said, did you buy or sell crypto? So
in what ways is Web3 anonymous, and in what ways is it not? Because it seems like there's a misconception that this is anonymous, the criminals can just hide their money laundering or whatever they're doing. But what you're talking about is like confirming identity, like so that the individual could have that power to confirm their identity across Web3, but then also like it could secure transactions. So like, how should we think about what the anonymity looks like within these technology systems?
sure, yeah, I mean, it's anonymous in that you could create a wallet and not necessarily give much information about yourself. You can buy an NFT domain and not do anything but give your wallet in order to mint it to the blockchain. It's not anonymous in that everything's public, so you can trace everything. So if you can find out that origination where some identity of the user is kind of exposed, then you can trace it back to who that person is. So you're no longer anonymous. But I think we're going to see a lot of change, especially with regulation in this space, and it's something I'm exploring actively just from being in identity.
Could someone publish your private information against your will to the blockchain and you would be completely unable to remove it?
Sure. If someone wrote something to the blockchain, so.
And we don't have laws right now governing that.
I don't know how you would have laws about that if someone like malicious, so you took your information and published it.
Explore. So that maybe there's a business model around that.
Our identity provider that we use, the Humanity Check, does government issued ID check. There's a selfie feature, so you show your face in a camera and you turn left and right. And the more advanced AML KYC processes are more intense, and that it'd be hard for someone to say they're you and pass.
So what is your company planning in terms of power usage for data storage?
So we just write to the blockchains. We're constantly looking at new layer 2 blockchains that are coming out there. So they started originally on Ethereum and the gas prices were really expensive. We want to pay for the mint and gas fees for our users. So we switch to different layer 2s. So right now we're on Polygon. As that one grows and gets too big, we'll look into other ways. The idea is that NFT can be ported to other blockchains. So that's kind of how we're looking at it.
When you say pay for the gas, is that like Web3 lingo?
I think it might be on one of your terms.
Is
there.
it?
Yeah.
Pay for the gas?
Yeah.
I don't remember typing that.
It's a fee that you pay to miners in order to, share your data on the blockchain. But depending on the blockchain, it's cheaper. So Polygon is like 1 or 2 cents for us to mint an NFT.
I'm very curious about your patents. I've had quite a few, which is very impressive. Can you give us some information about like what the process is and how you get involved in writing a patent?
Yeah, I was lucky. I was at IBM and they have #1 patent holders for 26 plus years. So that was a huge help having someone else do the patent write-up. I've been a pro se inventor too, so I've written it up myself. I mean, it's easy enough to do and it's a lot cheaper if you write yourself versus use an attorney. And it's just a mindset, right? You start identifying what could be patentable and what you're doing. Like one of mine that's just filed is around APIs, especially on the blockchain when you're returning a value, being able to return back that like Merkle proof, like the tree of all the blockchain and what the value was at a certain time. So at any point in time, someone could go back and prove that the value returned in your API payload was true. So that's kind of cool, and we're going to be implementing it. Another patent is on that, the blockchain badges solution I talked about, right? Like understanding based on your on-chain activity, what constitutes displaying as a badge based on it. So most of my patents are software related, kind of whatever I'm working on.
How long before you get your patents up as NFTs and fractionalize them?
I know, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
For your software patents, I think most software engineers are used to just writing code, and most of what they write is brand new and novel, and it doesn't occur to anyone to patent it. When should one think about, okay, this is something I really should pursue a patent for, because having the patent would be some advantage, or I can sell it, or I can buy it. What?
For me, it's sometimes just sitting down with the team and saying, show me what's new, like give me a demo what you're up to, and kind of poking at questions like, was this difficult? What did you run into challenges when you're implementing it? And they'll be like, oh, I created this one little thing. Like, okay, has anyone else created this one little thing? And that leads to whether or not it could potentially be patentable. I tend to stay away from patents that are too low level, right? Because it's harder to prove infringement. So anything you can kind of teach or have displayed or somehow show that somebody else is doing your invention is usually more valuable. But that doesn't mean, it's part of the whole process, from design through product through actually implementing and putting the product out. But you have to be careful because you only have a year from public disclosure. Wow.
And then do you pursue defense of those patents?
I don't. Attorneys would of the companies I'm working with, but yeah, like IBM prided themselves on not going after the little guy. They actually open sourced a lot of their patents so they'd be available for everyone to build on top of. And the whole reason the patent process even started was people were holding their ideas as trade secrets and they expire. So it's getting those ideas out so that people can build on them.
There's a very robust patent insurance market. For $1,000, $10,000 a year for $1 million of coverage, you can buy both prosecution and defense insurance. Lisa's mentioned a couple of the things that are really critical in terms of observability. That turns all of that into something much more practical.
Maybe need a separate workshop for the software developers in Montana, how to patent your work.
Tech transfer program. Yeah.
So clearly, I think, education and understanding these new technologies, what things are about, the ways it can be used is important. Do you have suggested resources that people could turn to if they want to know more, want to learn more, and investigate?
Yeah, we just launched the Unstoppable Women of Web3. There's tons of companies that have partnered with us, and it's all about educating women, but really anybody, and getting them into the Web3 space. So there's YouTube videos, there's content. My first NFT that I bought was from a company called Surge, and that was all about in real life events. You can come to things with your NFT in order to learn, and they do a lot of webcasts and education. Alchemy, I signed up for, someone posted on Twitter, giving away a free course on smart contracts, and I said, yay me, like, you like the tweet and retweet it, and I got a free course on that. So there's opportunities for you to learn and dive in and get your hands dirty on the code, as well as just, you know, education. So follow me on Twitter, Lisa Seacat.
Follow Lisa.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned earlier, I think that do folks meet in Bozeman or in Montana? Is there a group of folks that are working in this space to connect with?
Yeah, I got pulled into Bozeman Slack. Is anyone else on that? Bozeman Slack, it's like tech. But apparently every Thursday there's a crypto meetup. So at the tap room.
There you go. Any final words before we part to head to the reception? Any last burning questions? All right, I want to, first of all, let's give Lisa a huge round of applause. One of our silver linings of the pandemic is certainly the incredible people that have been able to return to Montana or have been prompted to return to Montana by the events of the past couple of years. So we're so happy that you're part of our tech community and bringing your passion for this space to our state.